Hello and welcome to this edition of Flap TV. Our guest panelists for this episode, Leominster resident, Fitchburg businesswoman. On the left, Kelly Wilbur. And on the right, we have member of the Leominster Republican City Committee, local businessman, City of Leominster election warden, and former candidate for city councilor at large, and just an all-around great guy. I'm proud to call my friend Charlie Milhans.
Thank you.
Let's get right to it. Issue 1, the Twin Cities do not have any pot shops yet, but we have plenty of potholes. And at a time when automobiles are becoming more fuel efficient, but the cost of labor and asphalt continues to increase, revenues from gas taxes alone are doing less and less with our crumbling infrastructure. So what can we be doing, and what should we be doing on this funding crisis for roads and bridges across the state? Michael Delamonica.
It's a perfect storm here in Massachusetts. The labor costs are high, and yet we're the ones with the seasons up here, the 4 seasons, the harsh winters, the harsh summers, and so it's a shame that we're the ones who have the bad road conditions. The potholes, need to resurface them more. Other parts of the country are relieved from some of these responsibilities because the climate's better, and then when something does have to be redone or resurfaced, the labor costs are cheaper. That's just the way it is in other parts of the country. So unfortunately, we bear the brunt of those costs, and it's no surprise that our roads are in horrible shape. You know, like anything else, we talk about this, public works and education. You know, the state, the formulas that are out there, and my friend Charles has some statistics on this, he can go into some more detail, that they're just really out of date. And we get the short end of the stick in north central Massachusetts in terms of, in terms of state funding, in terms of state support. We were hoping with this new administration that maybe there was going to be more of a exposure to, more helping of north central Massachusetts, that, we're not so forgotten. And is that happening? I don't know. I mean, what does your car think in terms of what the conditions of the roads are? So it's a tough situation, but clearly more needs to be done. More needs to be recognized in terms of the problems we have, not just in this state in general, but in our pocket of the state here in north central Mass.
Charlie?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mike, and I did a little bit of research before coming out to the show, and I looked on the state website, and the state's next year is planning to spend around $718 million for road improvements, and they divide all that money up into various regions, and Boston is one of the 13 regions that gets 43% of the road revenue, and in our area, which is called the Massachusetts area, we get 4.46%, which is just kind of a tiny part of the road budget. Unless we're getting enough money, we just really can't do the roads.
Kelly?
I think when I was looking into this, I was interested to find out that the federal gas tax, for instance, hasn't gone up since 1993. And that's just a flat rate of 18 cents a gallon, which then gets distributed throughout the states. But inflation's gone up, fuel efficiency's increased, and really that number seems like it might need to be updated. I mean, no one wants to talk about raising taxes, but at the same time, the gas tax is one of those taxes that was actually really popular. People felt that they were getting their money's worth because roads are something that's really visible. We all use them every day, and maybe it's time to update that a little bit.
Cindy?
I don't agree with new taxes, but I do agree that we haven't updated the gas tax in a long time. If we had to do it, now would probably be a good time to do it because the prices are so low that you could do it without people necessarily noticing it. But I'd really, before we got to that point, I'd like to look at other things. Charlie mentions about how much is allocated for Central Mass, and when you think about Central Mass, we're in the snow belt. Mm-hmm. So if anything, we're even more impacted by the weather conditions on our roads than, say, Boston. So, I wonder if there's a way somehow to have the state reallocate some funds, or how do we go about looking at that area?
There are 36,000 miles of roadway in Massachusetts. Massachusetts drivers log 56 billion miles a year, which is enough to bring us to the sun and back 300 times. Yet we spend only 0.67% of our economy, about $2.5 billion a year, on roads and bridges. That is number 50 out of 50 states. And as Michael said, that we have the worst weather, we spend the less out of any state as a percentage of as a percentage of the economy. So there's talk in Fitchburg of a debt exclusion, which would put the onus on homeowners. Now, there's a segment of the population that uses schools, there's a segment of the population that uses the senior center, there's a segment of the population that uses the library. Everybody uses the roads. Should the brunt of additional funding for roads be put on homeowners, or should we be supporting efforts that are in the state legislature right now to look at more broad-based revenue sources, such as excise taxes, increased excise taxes dedicated to roads and bridges, local sales taxes dedicated to roads and bridges?
Well, you know, as a last resort, it may have to come to that. As a last resort, it's up to the individual cities and towns to have that discussion. But I think what has to happen, and because I mentioned education as well, we're seeing a parallel situation when it comes to education. The formulas are so completely outdated at the state level in terms of, because something like doesn't happen out of whack, like you say, Kevin, without there being a defective problem with the formula. We spend the least out of all the states, yet our problems are some of the worst. Well, you have to go back to the foundation. And the onus is on this administration, this state administration, this Department of Transportation to say, look, examine these formulas. Are they out of date? Then, as the next step, once that happens, then, as Kelly mentioned, let's have a real honest, adult, mature discussion about the gas tax, about the fuel tax, whether it's worth looking into or whether it's worth raising. You don't go there first, but you go there as a second to last resort. And then as a very last resort, you go to the homeowners. As a very last resort, you go to the property owners. And I think that's the order it should be.
I feel more comfortable with the people who use the roads should pay for using the roads. And we also have, like we have more fuel efficient cars. I mean, my wife and I are toying with buying an electric car, and there I wouldn't pay any gas taxes, you know, to use the road. So I think that all those formulas need to be relooked at.
In 2008, Massachusetts became the last state in the country to pass a law allowing the use of flagmen for traffic details rather than police officers. The average cost for a police detail in Massachusetts for a patrolman is $68 an hour, $75 an hour for a sergeant rank and above. It's a fraction of the cost for flagmen. I don't know about you guys, I don't see many flagmen out there. I see police officers on road details.
Never see a flag.
In fact, for the state, what the state spent $25 million last year on traffic control, less than $1 million of that was on flagmen. The rest of the $24 million was on police details. So, you know, we go to the cities and towns go to the state and say, give us more funding, and the state says, you're not taking care of, you're not using the tools we're giving you to save money. Should flagmen be used, or should we be using police officers?
I think flagmen should be. I mean, I travel a lot. I was driving through Pennsylvania a couple of weeks ago, and they got flagmen that around big projects. Sometimes they put one or two state police, but not like we do. And I was looking at the state of Virginia pays a total of $500,000 a year for flagmen, which is just a drop in the bucket. And that extra money could be used for paying for roads.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, very good. Issue 2. The Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court will be hearing a challenge to a Massachusetts law which prohibits businesses from directly contributing to campaigns. But state law allows unions to contribute up to $15,000 to campaigns. Should businesses be allowed to contribute to campaigns, and should unions be allowed to contribute to campaigns? Charlie?
Well, I think, you know, both is fair. What's unfair in Massachusetts is we're one of the few states. There were 6. Kentucky's law got thrown out last year. It's very similar to Massachusetts. But we allow unions to give up to $15,000 each for candidates. And there's no, you know, very little reporting documentation. You have to report on it. And businesses can't contribute any money to political campaigns in Massachusetts. Mayor Walsh in 2013 got over $500,000 from 100 unions, and some of the unions aren't in-state, they're out-of-state. And it gives a candidate such a big advantage. We have a lawsuit going before the Supreme Judicial Court where we're challenging that on one of the parts of the Massachusetts Constitution, and then two parts in the US Constitution, the First Amendment and the 14th on the equal protection under the law provision.
Kelly?
So I think the difference that's important to keep in mind with unions versus businesses contributing to political campaigns is that a union's sort of essence is to represent and sort of present its members' interests, whereas a business's bottom line is really about profit. It's not about, and it's about taking care of shareholders. So I do feel like I can understand where the existing rules come from, and I don't see a compelling reason for that to change.
I actually disagree. I don't think the unions should be partaking in politics whatsoever. I think they have too much money in politics, especially in Washington. I think the unions should be out of it. I also think nonprofits should not be able to donate to political campaigns. If you're gonna open it up for the unions, nonprofits and other things like that, then you gotta open it up for the businesses. It's just not fair, and it puts too much money into certain parties. It's just not right.
Just open it up to nobody. Open up to nobody. You know what? These campaigns are getting out of hand. I remember when it was I believe Ted Kennedy ran against Ray Shamey. Remember that name, Charles, for
Long
U.S.
time
Senate
ago.
in the early 80s, maybe
Yep.
84, 86,
Yep.
something like that. And it was astronomical that Kennedy spent $1 million. The campaign $1 million, and the Shamey side $10 million, and we were like, we couldn't believe it. There was astronomical figures. It's a drop in the bucket today. So what's happening is that, let's call out both sides. We're going to say, unions this, unions that, unions that. Unions are a great punching bag, okay? They're a great target to kick in the rear end. But you know what? Let's just close it off to everybody. Let's just have it. Let's just have it publicly financed. Let's just throw it out to everybody. Or throw it out. That you have a set amount. These are the campaigns, publicly financed campaigns.
I agree.
Anyone else?
It's all or
Best way
nothing,
to get
yeah.
the money out of politics.
Yeah.
In 1979, 1 out of 3 workers belonged to a union. This year, it's 1 out of 20. There was a study done last year by the Economic Policy Institute that found a direct correlation between union decline and wage stagnation. The study showed that if union density remained at 1979 levels, the average blue-collar worker would be making 9% more in terms of wages than they are now, and that's not even taking into consideration health insurance and other benefits. So I guess what's confusing to me, and maybe you can help me out here, is that it seems that the Republicans, both on the national and the state level, okay, with Citizens United, are trying to open up the rights of corporations and business interests to influence campaigns, but are trying to put a choke on unions. Now, why are blue-collar workers in Pennsylvania and Michigan and in Ohio voting for Republicans who are actively trying to choke off the unions which represent their best interests? Anyone?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. And, there's other issues that are in that. And let's take the people in northern Maine who've lost their job because of NAFTA and allowing cheap Canadian timber into the United States. And so the timber industry in northern Maine has gone, the American workers there have gotten hurt. And it's the security that people look at. That's the most important thing that they look at, their jobs.
The thing is, though, and again, I think to Kevin's point, though, it's knowing this is where the money corrupts things. I don't know if people have a clear understanding what comes from where, okay? Now, you'll hear it from the president, just seemingly every day. Oh, NAFTA was this Bill Clinton creation. NAFTA's associated with Bill Clinton. Look at the breakdown. NAFTA was a conservative idea. NAFTA is a free trade idea. NAFTA originated with the Republican Party. Bill Clinton, as a compromise, supported NAFTA. Now, whether he should have or should not have is a different issue. And looking back, probably shouldn't have. Probably shouldn't have given them to his principles. But I do think it ties into the very first thing you said, though, Kevin, the money issue. And unfortunately, the money issue and these businesses that are spending money on campaigns, drowning out some of the union voices, well, you know what? you can't use common sense, or you can't use, well, we think this one supports this one, or we think that one supports that one. Because what it is that these business dollars are drowning out the voices of people who should be speaking up more. So that's where I think you get some of this misunderstanding, for lack of a better term, of whose side a particular party or a particular policy is on.
Very good. We got about 30 seconds. Who wants to take it on this side of the table?
Are we still on with the unions?
Yes.
Well, I'm not a fan of the union, so I'll front with that. They were intended at a time when employees were not treated fairly, the wages weren't treated fairly. Unions came in, they were great at a certain time. This day and age, I find that the unions have a lot of control over politics. Union dues, people are forced to pay into the unions, and they may not even want to be part of it, but they're forced to turn over their wages to it. It's complete corruption.
Unlike the corporations that are looking out for the workers' best interests.
Well, there are a lot of corporations out there that are looking out for the best interests of their employees. They're not all bad.
Okay.
They're not
But all
all bad.
unions, but
But
all unions are bad.
automatically bad.
All
I
unions
think,
are
you know
bad.
what, unions have a tendency to protect some lazy workers. People have, tenure, like the teachers' unions. I'll get help for that, I'm sure. But there's sometimes I think the unions, there's a time and a place for them. I'm not a fan of them. I think if you're a good worker, you go to work for a good company, they're gonna take care of you. If they don't, you go work somewhere else. There's plenty of great corporations out there that take care of their employees.
Well, it's good to know that corporate America is looking out for our best interests. Thank you, Cindy.
They are.
Remember out there on TV?
Without corporate
Conservatives
America, we
don't
don't
like
exist.
unions.
All right,
Liberals like unions.
we have to get out of here. We're already running over. We need to take a 1-minute break, and we will be right back on Flap TV. Hold on.
Great.
Issue 3, in 2009, Congress passed the Affordable Care Act, which increased regulations on insurance companies. It included elimination of lifetime maximums. It included not allowing insurance companies to deny coverage for pre-existing conditions, and it required insurance companies to fully cover preventative exams, including mammograms and blood work and lab work, to try to catch early detection. This year, a much more conservative administration in Congress is looking to repeal the Affordable Care Act and replace it with a plan that relies less on government regulations and more on the forces of the free market. So as we look to the future of healthcare in this country, are we better off with more government involvement or less? Kelly.
I think ultimately we all want the same things. We want lower cost, we want better coverage, more transparency, reliability. Everyone famously quotes if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. No one likes interruption. People want to be able to know that if something happens, they're taken care of. I know I've personally benefited from the ACA as a small business owner. It would be really difficult for me to buy health insurance without it. So that's been really great. I know that some people have had not so great experiences with the ACA. And I think, the primarily employer-based healthcare system that we have in this country does stifle innovation and entrepreneurship. And I think we should really look at that in any direction we go from here. I've heard a lot of arguments also about the free market allowing more innovation in healthcare. And what I haven't really heard, though, is any insurance company saying what amazing things they might do for us if they were deregulated to a greater degree. So right now, I think I'd prefer to see us move to a single payer system or something closer to that. It's just where I'm seeing, yeah.
Cindy?
I'm a free market girl. I definitely believe in that competition. The Healthcare Act had some good points, allowing people, with pre-existing conditions. I think that's something we absolutely have to have. We need to work that in there. But we need to figure out the funding aspect of it. What we did was basically put 24 million people into Medicaid. We could have just expanded Medicaid, throw them all in there, and we would have solved that problem. So although it was intended to solve certain problems, and it did, the funding aspect of it was not there. There was things that were not looked at. We need open competition. We need the borders opened up. We need tort reform. And we have to get some control over the pharmaceutical industry. If we don't do that, none of this is ever going to work. And I think it's time for both sides, because neither one of them has a great plan, but both sides together, if you work together, you got to find a solution, and there has to be a better solution because it's not working, and it is failing right now.
Michael?
I'd just like to ask anybody out there over the age of 65, how does Medicare work for you? And it's not perfect by any means, okay? There's billing problems, there's eligibility problems, there's issues with the supplemental plans, but it works pretty well overall, okay? Medicare is a very efficient program. It's very efficiently run. And you know what? It's no wonder why every single industrialized country in the world has a system similar to Medicare, except it covers everybody. If we can handle our poorest and our sickest people in a single payer system, why can't we handle the rest of us? It's just, it boggles my mind. And every time I hear an argument against it, it's always, well, there's rationing, well, there's waits, well, there's delays. I've been to Italy, I've been to other countries, I've been to European countries where a single payer system is in effect. And trust me when I say, people are not dying in the streets. People are getting the care that they need. And is it perfect? No. Is Medicare perfect? No. Is it better than the hodgepodge of stuff we have now making up our health insurance system? Yeah, it is.
Charles?
Well, the ACA is very complicated. I don't know if you ever downloaded it and read it. I tried to read it and understand it. And it's, and I don't think I'm a real stupid person either, but I can't. It's very, very technical type of law. I thought Romney Care worked really well in Massachusetts. We asked that Deval Patrick asked President Obama not to put ACA in Massachusetts for a couple of years and let Romney Care run, because they had a website that worked. You can enroll in Mass Health. I mean, it seemed to work, and then we tore it all apart, and then we put in a website that took forever to get fixed, and it was a worse system. There's problems right now. There's I understand the state of Iowa, there's something where 95% of the counties are not going to have a choice in the exchanges. You can't buy health care across straight lines. When I worked for my last company, their health care was provided through Anthem Blue Cross out of California. When I belong to a company, I can do that. As an individual, I can't buy insurance across state lines, which is a really kind of stupid thing.
Do you look at health care in this country as a right or a product? Not everyone at once.
It's both. It's a product in this society in the 21st century. It's a product that is essential for life. Therefore, it's not like driving a car. It's not even like having a house. But it is something, healthcare is essential for life. So I look at it as both. And really, I'm not alone in that. If you do poll after poll after poll, taking the politics out of it, taking which side supports this, or labeling things, Obamacare this, Romney care that, you take poll after poll after poll, people agree. People agree with the concept of single payer, where they agree with healthcare as a right. It's just about efficiently providing it and getting the voices. You talked about campaign finance, and you talked about the big money, getting the big money out of controlling the voice on this, and that's the first step in reaching a solution on this.
It shouldn't be mandated, though, by the government. I agree that it's, everybody has the right to health care, and we should provide health care. We should make sure if there's not available coverage for them, that there's a pool, a risk pool that we put them in. Everybody should have access to health care, but they shouldn't be mandated by the government to buy health care. I think for the government to step in and tell you that force you to buy a product, or they're gonna tax you on it, I disagree with that.
But people agreed with that for 50 years until Obama said, yeah, let's do that. And then all of a sudden, we have half of our political people saying, oh, no, that's a bad thing. That's what I don't like.
But what do you do
Putting the
with people who
politics
don't
into
sign
it.
up for Obamacare? They have a problem with, there's a lot of people that just don't
A
sign
lot
up.
of the young people
A
didn't
lot of the
sign
young-
up, and that's where the
A lot
funding
of the
issue
young
comes
people, or
in.
they choose the huge deductions. I mean, if you buy health care and your deductions are 12,000, that's not health care. You have to exhaust your deductibles before you can go and they'll cover anything.
Well, the governor you supported is the one who instituted that very plan to begin with in 2006, and apparently we found a fix to it, because what's Massachusetts up to, like 99.6% or some crazy number like that?
didn't
So
have-
apparently there's a way to fix that so that people are part of the system.
In
Well,
a capitalistic society, in a free market, we profit on a lot of things. We profit on entertainment, we profit on meals, we profit on travel. Should we be profiting off of people's illnesses? To me, that doesn't seem like the hallmark of a civilized society. Exit question. Start with Cindy. July 4th, when the fireworks are going off, is Sean Spicer still going to be the press secretary? Yes or no?
No, I don't think he will be.
Michael?
It'll be something, but not press secretary.
No.
No.
Wow,
I put a bet in on, I think, a couple weeks from now. I can't remember what the date is.
couple weeks. Very good. How does that big Mercedes handle the potholes?
Luckily, where I live, I don't really run into a lot of potholes. I'm very fortunate, but I did run into one on 95. Oh, boy.
Well, at least if you hit a big one, you'll have good health care, right?
There you go. There you go.
In her town, all
With
the
a
roads
large
are like
deductible.
gravel, aren't they?
Even roads. She has chains on the Mercedes.
I just put
Nice.
new tires on my car, so we're doing all right. Knock on wood.
Well, thank you to our guests, Charles Milhans, Kelly Wilbur. It's great having you.
Definitely.
Of course, our friends Cindy and Michael, as always. Great time. We'll be back next time. In the meantime, join in the discussion on our Facebook group, Fitchburg-Leominster All Politics. 24/7. Join in with your friends, neighbors, everyone else, and we'll catch you next time right here on Flap TV. Goodbye.
Tell us what you think.